Hello and welcome to All Stats Aren't We, a podcast in which Leeds fans cast their combined eye over goings on at Elland Road, giving scrutiny to the underlying statistics and tactical footings at work at Leeds United. I'm Adam Elliott, the Brendan Aronson early goal of the podcast. Well, that was surprising. Surely the biggest surprise of this 90 minutes. And I'm joined today by the Joe Roden goal of the podcast. Well, I'm sorry, Brendan. That one was a bigger shock. It's Martin Riley. It's not a shock to see you. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you very much. Had a very, very quiet day. Literally, my wife has gone to India for the week. And the only child who was with me today was my youngest, who went to Yorkshire Wildlife Park for the day. And then the other child who was in the house went out to see his girlfriend, because he's like 15, so he's got a girlfriend and all that. And so I was on my own in the house nearly all day, which was tremendous, if I'm totally honest. It
That
was
must
really
be
tremendous.
a real rarity in your life, to be fair, Martin, with the army that you've created.
Yeah, it definitely is. So some alone time was very good, which gave me a lot of time to play on Football Manager and to prepare for this podcast today. So yeah, it's been a great day. I've enjoyed it today. But I've had for tea just something basic. I had just a pizza and chips. It's just me, so I didn't see the point in cooking something elaborate for just me. So yeah, how about you, mate? How are you doing?
I could say that since the last time we spoke, because I wasn't on the preview for this West Ham game, it's been a pretty rubbish week. But the last 3 or 4 days have been much better. The first 3 or 4 days of that were, awful. But anyway, we don't need to talk about why. I'm not going to divulge that. If you're in the Discord, you'll know. If you're not in the Discord, well, why aren't you in the Discord? You should subscribe to our Patreon, and then you can be in the Discord. There you go. But yeah, it's been better. It's been worse weeks of my life. West Ham cheered me up, and then obviously the last few days have been decent, so that's fine. And then for tea, I had a sweet sour chicken stir fry, homemade, pretty good. 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10. So not bad. I can do better. I've had some really good food recently, though. I have to say, I can't remember the name of it, so I might have to come back to it later. Or again, I'll divulge in the Discord. A curry house last week was incredible. So that there's been some highs here. There have been some highs in the last week, and that was one of them. The curry was amazing. So I think we're going to go there at Christmas as well, me and my mates, because we do that every year. We go to a curry house around Christmas time instead of doing presents or Secret Santa or whatnot. Anyway, 2 months till Christmas, Martin. Speaking of children that you've got to start thinking about that if you've not already. I assume you probably have.
Already have.
Get those wish lists into Santa. Get them right in them. Anyway, obviously we're here today to discuss West Ham. The bad part of the West Ham game was a particular injury that we haven't had news on yet. Probably won't get news on until Thursday or Friday, and we're recording this on Monday, which is Gabriel Goodmanson, who had to hobble off injured, which was a real shame because he was having another pretty good game, to be honest. He won the corner for the Joe Roden goal late in the match as well. So how much of a blow would losing him be?
Yeah, it would be a big blow. He's been a big part of what has made us be successful in games. He's always able to carry the ball down that left channel. He links up well with whichever winger he's with, and him and Okafor have been getting a nice relationship going, nice understanding. And it is a shame to lose him when we have. But on the plus side, it's nice to see some more of James Justin, who we haven't really seen a whole lot of so far. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him, but I would rather it had been without the potential for Goodmanson to be injured. Hopefully that it is a pretty low-key one, and it didn't look too bad. Maybe some sort of strain in his lower back, so hopefully it isn't anything serious, and it'll just be maybe a game or two that he misses. Maybe not even that, but we'll soon see when we get the update from Farker.
Indeed, we will. And obviously, we weren't going to go a whole season of no Jayden Bogle and Gabriel Goodmanson injuries in total. Like, it's just not feasibly going to happen that they play every single minute of every single game. They haven't already. Bogle has had to go off before already this season. But it was nice to see a bit more of Justin, it has to be said. Someone who can play both sides, who is probably the most ambipedal player in the squad, or two-footed if you want to call it that. Ambipedal or is it ambipedal? I always forget which. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, he can play both sides. It obviously then means that Sam Byron will probably be back on the bench as well. And I don't, no offense to him, love you, Sam. Really do love you. You're one of my favourite players growing up. There wasn't many good ones. But, he's not a player I want to see much of this season in the Premier League. He's more there for his intangibles, I would say, than his tangibles.
Yes.
So, yeah. Don't think there's anything else to talk about. We don't know about any other injuries yet. I think everyone else looked more or less fine. Okafor didn't play the full 90, but I think that's because they were trying to protect him as much as possible. And he looked pretty bright in the first half, so hopefully he's more okay for the next game. Nyonzo's not back yet. That's the only other one. But hopefully, again, we get an update that's positive this weekend. This Thursday or Friday before the weekend game against Brighton. But we're not here today to talk about Brighton. We're here today to talk about West Ham. But before I do get into the game somewhere, I just want to remind you all that we are on YouTube. Hello. And we would appreciate if any of you who haven't subscribed, who haven't gone and liked, just go and do so. That'd be massive for us. Even if you don't want to watch on YouTube and you prefer to listen in your regular podcast player, please just go and subscribe. It would be amazing for us in the long run. I think that's it. So we're going to get into West Ham stuff now with the game summary. Leeds approached the game with their usual 4-3-3 shape, with West Ham initially going with a 4-4-2, which did eventually change to more of a 4-2-3-1. The game got off to a very quick start for the Whites, with the first goal coming inside the 3rd minute. Noah Okafor headed a Jayden Bogle cross, which was saved by Areola in the West Ham goal into the path of a certain Mr. Brendan Aronson to tap home from close range. The pressure then continued to pile onto the Hammers, and Leeds scored again, with Longstaff whipping across into the box, which was met with a strong header by Joe Rodon, and the score was 2-0 after 15 minutes to make him our joint top scorer for the season. The rest of the first half was pretty stop-start, with lots of stoppages for injuries, which led to a giant 14 minutes of added time. For much of the rest of the half, Leeds had the better of the chances and generating more XG, with possession ending up pretty even, but the best chances of the rest of the half fell to West Ham, with Thomas Souček putting a header wide of the post. The second half was quite different to the first, starting with Leeds having some possession, but ending with West Ham dominating the ball, with Leeds unable to get a proper foothold in the match. Leeds had the better of the early chances, but as the half wore on, West Ham had more of the chances. However, they were largely kept at arm's length by Leeds, generating only small chances and small XG chances. Late on in the game, West Ham managed to pull one goal back when Mateus Fernandes hit a looping header beyond Lucas Perry's outstretched arms to make the score 2-1 in the 90th minute to give the game a bit of a nervy ending. But Leeds were able to keep the lead, and the game ended 2-1 with another big 3 points for Leeds. Another home win too. So stats of note for anyone that wants to know them. In the end, West Ham had 59% possession to Leeds' 41%. But Leeds had 1.49 expected goals to West Ham's 0.65, and we had more shots on target, more big chances, 3-0 that was. Far better in that regard as well. So it looks like it was pretty earned, Martin, this one. Probably quite a fair scoreline in all in the end as well, maybe. But yeah, do you feel like it was a deserved win in your mind? West Ham have been in very bad form this season, and they seem to be in quite a lot of trouble, it has to be said.
Yeah, 100% it was a deserved win. We got off to a very good early start, which is always helpful. And considering the trouble that West Ham have had this season so far, that will have been a real sucker punch to them. They will have wanted to keep things steady in the opening 15 minutes and not concede, and they conceded twice in those opening 15 minutes. So you have to say that really set the standard for the game, and that really will have got them in trouble right from the get-go. And although they did score that one late goal, like I said, there wasn't any big chance which they created. I think the closest was Souček's header just before the end of the first half. That was a pretty decent chance, and usually you would expect Souček to put those away. He's generally pretty good aerially, but I think Joe Rodon did a good job of putting him off, even though he lost the aerial. But it just really didn't seem like a normal effort from Souček. So, but I do think that we did 100% deserve to win this game. What we can learn from this game, maybe that's a different story, because West Ham were quite bad and have been bad for most of this season so far. And yeah, if you're their fans at the moment, you've got to be pretty worried by the start of the season losing against us as a relegation battler. This would be the game where they would be at least looking to pick up a draw, even if it was away from home at Elland Road. Maybe they wouldn't have been expecting a win considering the early start, but they will have been at least wanting a draw. So you'd definitely be expecting them to be upset about this loss.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we'll talk a bit more about the relegation picture later, but it did strike to me as, rather than us being like fantastic, West Ham were really, really quite poor, and did not like the fast start that we made. Has to be said. Yeah, I actually missed the first goal because of how quick we started. I was just getting into the venue that I was going to watch it in and had it on my phone. So I kind of half saw it, but yeah, we missed the goal by about a minute, which was annoying. But yeah, let's talk about ball progression then, because that's been a topic of conversation on this podcast recently then, Martin. Obviously, via the eye test, I want to make that very clear before you answer. This game seemed to be the kind of match where we were able to progress the ball quite well in a different kind of way. And the reason I say that is because we've been talking about the skill set of Calvert-Lewin and how he gets to first contact, the skill set of the players like Anton Stach and Sean Longstaff in terms of how they get to win the second balls and the scraps and all of the rest of it, and why we need to lean into that more. Now, we'll talk about whether we leaned into that more in a second, but there was something else that caught my eye in terms of how we progressed the ball and how we got through them. Was that something you felt as well? And does the data back it up is the other question.
So there was definitely quite a lot of damage done to West Ham via direct carries. There were a few effective ones, obviously, in the build-up to the first goal. Ampadu, with not someone who you really associate with big, long carries, but he got through a few in this game. And I think this speaks to more West Ham's lack of physicality and energy and just general lack of competent duel winners in the midfield area. A lot of these carries were going through central spaces. Aronson and Ampadu had quite a few between them. Those were the two main people who were able to do it. And no disrespect to Ethan Ampadu, but if your midfield is allowing Ethan Ampadu to carry the ball at will, like it looked timed in this, and actually winning take-ons as well, he won a couple of take-ons in this one, then you've got problems in your midfield area, because Ethan Ampadu is not that kind of player. He obviously is pretty press resistant and he's pretty technical, but he's not the one who you'd associate with ball carrying. Aronson, obviously that is more his game. So you can say what you want about Brendan Aronson's final product, but ball carrying, he's pretty damn good at that part of it, and he has been for some time. It's just what he does after he's finished the carry that is generally the issue. But yeah, it was definitely something which did do a good job for us in this one, to break through lines of pressure and to get the ball forward, especially in the first half. It was pretty pronounced. But as per the data, we didn't do it any more than we would do normally. I did a quick dirty maths on this. Carries per touch in this one, we had just about half of a carry per touch. So 0.46 carries per touch. The highest this season was actually against Burnley in the last game, which was 0.64 carries per touch. So it's probably roughly similar to what we had at Hadwell season. It's been hovering around 0.45 to 0.6. So it wasn't really much more than normal. It's just more pronounced. And because it stood out more because of these carries preceding goals and preceding good chances, like the one which Aronson had where he beat two men and then carried it about 40 yards. That kind of thing, it's going to make it stand out in your mind a bit more. But wasn't something which we did more. It's just the ones that we did do were pretty damn good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were just more memorable because, like you said, more effective. The fact they were ending in moments rather than in other games who've maybe done it still just as much, roughly, but it hasn't always ended in the most dangerous moment. So that's probably all it was. But yeah, it just felt like watching it and watching it back as well, it felt like we were doing it a lot, but I think it was just the effectiveness of those, as I say. Yeah, I'd agree for the first half and the first sort of, I'd even say the first 15 minutes of the second half as well. Like there were a few noticeable ones. We were doing it quite a lot. It's just that then we stopped doing it. which is interesting, and maybe we'll talk about that a bit later as well. So yeah, it just didn't become a thing. And Purdue, by the way, just quickly, like, what an amazing footballer in the first third of the pitch and the second third of the pitch. But oh my goodness, in that last third of the pitch, that's not his game at all. Like, you don't want to. He had a nosebleed, didn't he, on a couple of occasions? That left foot shot that he had was atrocious, and that pass he tried to play through. I think it was to Okafor. It just completely got it wrong. So, not where you want him. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I think it was just West Ham's athleticism, physicality, whatever you want to call it. Both those things lacking a lot here, and we were able to just break through quite easily in those moments when we did it, which was why it was more effective than usual. Yeah, let's talk about other ways then. What do we think this is going to be repeatable against other teams just quickly? Or do you think it is just a West Ham thing, as we say? Or do you think you'll see this in other games where other teams maybe have a lack of physicality or athleticism or both, which means we can actually kind of get through them? Because I think West Ham might just be really, really bad in this respect, and they're going to have to fix this in January if they can. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I do think that is just really a West Ham thing. I can't think of any other teams who have the lack of physicality, especially in midfield areas, as to what West Ham have. It's generally a baseline for this league that you have to be able to compete physically, and that's what we did immediately. The players who we brought in were all able to compete physically and were known for being big guys, strong, fast, with a priority on that, and it does not appear that West Ham have, or if they have, maybe they've tried to and they've not identified the players well, and they weren't able to match the physicality of the league. But yeah, I don't think it would be something which we'll be able to do for all opposition. But we do generally use ball carrying, especially on the flanks, as a way of progressing the ball anyway, and I think that will continue either way. But yeah, it won't be as pronounced through the midfield areas, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the West Ham do have some players that are probably better in this respect. If any West Ham fans are listening, I do think it's a concern for you guys. But I'd say like Mateus Fernandez, Magassa, I think they're better profiles of like midfielder that can have a bit more about them in terms of their intensity and their physicality and their just general legs, I would call it. So yeah, once you get those guys in the team, you might be better off. But we're talking about Leeds, so we're going to move it back on to Leeds. So with all this being said about progressing the ball in the way we progressed it or whatever, you in the preview, you and Dan, you said that we should focus on long passes as West Ham struggled to deal with that against Brentford. But was this also partially at play in terms of the match? And what led to the win as well as the carrying? Were they both? Was it kind of a dual way that we were able to just get at them quite easily?
I do think so, yeah. And it does definitely seem like someone at the club listened to the pod, but nah, of course they didn't. They have their own analysts.
Some people will. I guarantee there are at least one or two people at the club that listen to this podcast.
Yes, probably.
They won't be passing it on to Daniel Farker.
No. Obviously, the club has their own analysts who can do a much better job than what us clowns can do. So if we can see that we do better when we go a little bit longer, then the club will be able to see that as well, because the stats bear this out as well. In this one, we upped our percentage of long passes which were played long up to 17.82%, which was a much larger percentage than the previous two games. Against Tottenham, we had 13.32, and against Burnley, 9.55.
Pathetic.
So, yeah, and for much of the rest of the season, it's been 13, then 13, then 18, then 18, then 12 at Wolves, then up to 22 against Bournemouth. Naturally, they forced us to go longer than we might to normally. But I think this is around about the level what we want to do. I said that we don't want to be playing it long all the time. And I think that's something which we fell into a trap of in the second half, which we'll get onto the second half in a little bit, so I won't touch on that too much. But it was definitely something that you need to do, is to try to get the ball into the advanced areas quicker, and we definitely did do that. And there were some nice switch to play here and there throughout the game, which worked quite nicely, and some longer balls which Calvert-Lewin brought down nicely. So that's the kind of thing that you need to do. You need to switch things up and not always do the same thing against Premier League opposition. If you just play most of your passes short and slowly getting into the final third, teams are going to be set and able to defend against you better. So yeah, I do think this is another part of what made we'd be able to win this game.
Yeah, and again, sorry to talk about the opposition a bit here, but I do think it's relevant. Their centre backs were Tadibo, who, a few years ago, the way he was talked about, this looked like a really exciting signing for West Ham, but it really hasn't worked out. He's like considered a pretty athletic, pretty good ball playing centre back in France. Really haven't seen anything of him since he's moved to the Premier League. Really, that's impressed me. And then Max Kilman, who I quite liked at Wolves. I wouldn't say I loved him. I quite liked him, but again, I don't think this moves. They spent a lot of money on these two. I think it's like around the 60, 70 million pound mark, like between them. Just a lot of money, and I don't think it's a good pair. And they were two of the back three here, the two main centre backs in the back three, because the other one was not a centre back; it was a full back at centre back, and they really struggled. They struggled with Calvert-Lewin's physicality. They struggled to get to grips with him. There were moments where we got into the final third and we nearly generated stuff, and he was getting onto contacts then as well. Like they just weren't able to get a handle on him, read him. I was a bit annoyed about one moment from Calvert-Lewin. It wasn't his fault, actually. It was the ball's fault, but he was expecting to be able to go for a diving header, and then he wasn't able to diving header it, so he ended up trying a scorpion kick because it was behind him. That was quite funny.
That was great with that. That was great.
Because, yeah, he's thriving in the diving heading department 100% if the balls are there to do it. So I'm gutted for him that it wasn't on. But again, like those kind of moments, like he got so many little ones like that where they just weren't able to handle him at all. His movement and his physicality just really, really, really good. I know he's only got one goal, and there's fans listening like, why can't we get a better finisher in the team? The striker's there to score goals, but I cannot praise him enough for the job that he's doing in this team. And I really do hope he goes on a bit more of a run of goals. I'm not saying it'll be like incredible, but I saw a graphic that Lou Warnes put out, a friend of the pod, and he basically had Calvert-Lewin in the section that was pretty good, where he's getting a lot of shots and chances in the box, but his finishing is poor right now, which is not going to surprise anyone. You had Haaland in the top section, which was he's getting lots of chances and he's putting the ball in the corners. Calvert-Lewin's just not putting the ball in the corners at the moment. He's hitting it too close to the goalkeeper, or he's putting it wide or over. So hopefully that improves soon. That's the only thing really missing from his game at the moment. He has been absolutely brilliant recently. I'm getting lost in Calvert-Lewin because I absolutely love him so much, which I'm not going to go into, but it slightly surprised me so far how good he's been, actually, and he's stayed fit, which has been good too. But yeah, there was a lot of talk about the second half, Martin, and obviously having Calvert-Lewin means you can go long to him, but we were doing so, and the ball was still coming back at us quite a lot, which is what we're going to talk about now, because our group chat was pretty much evenly split on the issue. Half of us were happy with the way that we approached the half and felt it was the right thing to do when we were 2-0 up, to sit back and just basically let the game play in front of us, and not allow players like Jared Bowen, obviously Crysanthia Somerville and Lucas Paquetá time to kind of come up with a moment of magic, which they're all capable of, even if not consistently, they are all capable of doing so. And even Bowen did with his cross that was absolutely perfect for Fernandes. And I know which side you fall on in this debate, Martin, but can you explain to our listeners your thoughts on kind of that last sort of 30, 35 minutes of the game?
So I do feel that it was the right approach to take to sit in the mid block that we were in. It wasn't quite a low block, as much as some people in this were saying that it was. It wasn't a low block, it was a mid block, and it was at times near enough the halfway line where it was pushing out to. And I think the reason why we struggled in that last 30 minutes to get any sort of possession wasn't because of the press that we were employing. I think that part of it was fine. The reason why we struggled to keep possession was we was trying to go long too often in that final half an hour. Obviously, we said that we should be trying to go along a bit more than what we have been doing, but in the final 30 minutes, we were doing it nearly every time that we won the ball, just yeeting the ball long to Calvert-Lewin. Sometimes he managed to bring it down, sometimes he wasn't able to, or the pass wasn't played nicely to him, wasn't in the right area, so we weren't able to consolidate from there, and then West Ham were able to attempt another attack. But largely, I was comfortable in that final 30 minutes. I didn't feel under pressure. I didn't feel like West Ham were about to score, even when they did. It just, that header was weird. Like, the XG on it is 0.07, and the post-shot XG brings it up to, can I just check it 1 second, or I'll bring up the game. It was quite high anyway, depending on what it was.
Yeah, it was a great
There
flip.
we go. So it started at 0.07 was the XG, and that was brought up to 0.47. So it was brought up to a goal at every second shot. So it's increased by a whole 0.4. So it's just the way it was flicked right up beyond where the keeper could get to from the position where he took the header. It was just fortunate, and it didn't feel like a goal was coming until then. That moment did. I can understand what you're saying about allowing the players like Somerville and Bowen and Paqueta too much time on the ball, and I don't think it was necessarily what we wanted to do. And I just think that the execution on those long balls wasn't always right, or we didn't choose the right time to play it, or either way, wherever it was, I don't think we wanted them to have as much of the ball as what they did. It's just that's the way it ended up happening. Sometimes that happens in games of football, that you try to get some control back in the game, but it doesn't work. And I think Farker spoke about this after the game, and it didn't. The final 30 minutes wasn't what he wanted to do, and yeah, I'm not really sure where that falls, because he has said that before as well. But it does seem to be what we do fall into doing when we are late on in games and we're trying to keep hold of a lead, is the mid block, which I'm fine with, to be honest, because most times it works, and this time it did. A little bit nervy with that goal coming in the 90th minute, but to keep a team as quiet as we did with the attackers that West Ham have got, to say they had as much of the ball as what they did, I think we can take pride in our defending in that, because other teams may have let bigger chances in. Across the whole game, we only let in 0.6 XG across two halves of football, pretty much evenly split. Now, that included a 0.24 chance from Souček before half-time. So then all the other chances they had were only worth 0.4. So we really didn't allow a lot of chances, or big ones at all. But yeah, I do understand your gripes about the lack of looking after the ball.
Yeah, and contrary to popular belief, 2-0 is not the most dangerous scoreline in football. Statistically speaking, you win most of the time when you're 2-0 up, surprisingly, sometimes by more than 2 goals as well.
Yep.
But I think a player's natural instinct when it's about half an hour left is probably to be a bit more protective, and to probably be a bit like, maybe the kind of mentality changes a bit, and your passes aren't going to be quite what they were. You might be a bit more nervous about the time and thinking about the timing of a goal going in for West Ham, and then maybe that will swing the momentum a little bit. Fortunately, it came when it did, and there wasn't much time to go at that point. But yeah, I do think that's part of it. I really don't. Maybe it speaks to the difference between me and you in terms of watching football, and maybe there'll be lots of fans that are listening that think like you do and were pretty comfortable, and others that felt like me who didn't like it. The reason I didn't like it is just because I don't like seeing my team have to defend their box quite often for half an hour for large periods, and not have a way of getting out quite easily. I know it wasn't like the waves of sustained pressure were like so threatening to the point where they were generating loads of shots and high quality XG chances, because they weren't. We know that. The numbers suggest as much as well. But it has me on edge as a fan. I don't like it at all. So that's just me. Sorry,
I think no, you're totally fine, because like you said, in our group chat, it was pretty 50-50.
Yeah, it was.
And so, like, there was Josh who felt the same as me, John who felt the same as you. I think Derek fell on which side? Did Derek fall on?
Darren.
Was he on his own side?
No, he was mostly me and John. He added a bit extra, but yeah, he was.
Yeah. But yeah, I can understand what you're saying, and I can understand what Darren's talking about. That he doesn't like seeing us defend that much. But you just got to remember that we're in the Premier League, and we're a relegation battling team. We're going to have spells where we have to defend against sustained pressure.
100%.
And it's just something to get used to. And I think some people aren't quite used to it yet. And I think that's what this is, in my opinion.
Yeah, because it felt way more comfortable 2-0 up in the Championship doing that. Would have been like, all right, we're going to be absolutely fine here. We've got players like Ampadu, Strauch and Road on just booting the ball out. We'll be fine. Even if our goalkeeper is letting silly things happen, we'll probably be fine. But yeah, I think it is the Premier League thing. I think it's that factor. It's that you're coming up against these quality footballers, and like every single team has a Jared Bowen, maybe not quite at his level. Some of them have more than one as well, but every single team has a player like Jared Bowen who can really unlock a game like that. And he did. He got the assist. It was a really good cross. After being really kept quiet from Justin and Goodmanson, which we'll probably talk about later. So yeah, that just, I hate that factor. The only other thing I wanted to talk about was what you said about Calvert-Lewin. Like, the ball wasn't sticking as much with him. I still think it's for the want of trying with him. Maybe the balls just weren't quite as good as they were. Maybe he just wasn't making as much of them. The thing with Calvert-Lewin is, if you actually go and look at the data on this game, he doesn't actually win as many duels as he loses. But the point is, we've said this before on this podcast, but it's not always about what you lose in terms of if you're a centre-back that goes into a lot of aerials or a striker that goes into a lot of aerials, because sometimes it's just simply about putting off your marker and making the header uncomfortable for them. So maybe the ball will drop at Leeds' way instead of West Ham's, for example. So he doesn't have to win it every time. But we weren't even able to get moments like that as much in the last half an hour. There were a few, but it just didn't feel like we had players near to Calvert-Lewin enough. I felt that's what was part of my issue. The midfield was a little bit off it in terms of getting to those second balls, and that was a problem, I think. Another one of the reasons that I picked up of like us not being able to kind of sustain periods of our own where we could just manage the ball. I really didn't like how we managed the ball in those latter stages personally, but I do think people listening will probably agree with me, and some will agree with you, so they'll understand where we're coming from. I do think that this is the next point I want to make, which is, was it easier to accept the play style with the personnel on display? Because arguably we had our two most body-on-the-line centre-backs playing, who both have a more aggressive style of defending than Pascal does, even Ethan Ampadu, even though he can be quite aggressive. Like, I think they're probably the two players that are most likely to make a big warrior-like block and then go and Pontus Jansson it to the crowd. That's probably what I'm trying to get at here in Road and MPL. And obviously you don't want to allow Bowen to just kind of work spaces, so it kind of made some sense to be compact and to be able to defend the box at the periods as well. So was that part of the reason as well?
Didn't come into it for me, I'll be totally honest. It didn't come into it. But I was comfortable because I knew that they would be able to defend most aerial balls that came in, other than that one. But I think that was just, we weren't really expecting Mateus Fernandes to be the guy who was going to be scoring a header, to be honest. So, but it was certainly poor defending. But we'll get into that on the second part.
Then the last one for this section, just quickly then, because we're talking about the actual quality of the game and the tactics involved. In your opinion, will Leeds more good or will West Ham more bad, in all honesty, in this match, Martin? Or was it at least a bit of both? But like, where do you kind of draw the lines?
I'd say it's about 60-40 in terms of West Ham bad 60, or what Leeds good 40. I think that's about it for me. It's not quite it's not quite 50-50 because West Ham were very bad. The worst team that I've seen come to Elland Road or a face in general this season, to be honest. They're just I'm amazed at how low their physical battle winners are, and it just doesn't feel like you can just walk through that team. Brentford did it multiple times and created even more XG than what we did in this one. And that's with Keith Andrews coaching them. It's not great for West Ham. But it was definitely about 60-40 for me. But we also still were good in the way we were exploiting the weaknesses in West Ham's game as well, because Ampadu will have known that he might be able to get some more carries going. It's not something that you normally see from him. So I wonder if it's something which the data team pointed out to the club and said that the guys in midfield areas try to carry the ball a bit more than normal. You might have more joy in this one because they don't have the legs to stop you. So I wonder if there could be something in that, because it just doesn't seem the sort of thing that Ampadu often does. So there must have been something pointed out to them to make it more often, because I think he did more long carries in this game than I've seen all season so far. So it was a very good. But we took advantage of those weaknesses, though.
Yeah, and one other weakness that I don't even know if you guys brought up. I did listen to the preview, but I can't remember you actually mentioned this. West Ham have conceded more set-piece goals than any other team in the league so far.
We did. We definitely did.
Good. And we are the second most, but we obviously
shaking my head at you right now, thinking I wouldn't mention that. I've
been doing something while I listened to it and missed that bit. But they have been poor. And I love Ampadu. We talked about Ampadu a lot here. Loved Ampadu's work on the goalkeeper. He did the perfect amount of shithousery, let's call it, on him that he got away with. Any more, he might have given away a foul. The ref might intervene, but it was perfect. He just allowed the Longstaff to play the ball into the 6-yard box. You don't really often see a cross from a corner into the 6-yard box get scored by an attacking player, which in this case was Roden, because the keeper usually can come out and just either claim it with 2 hands or punch at the very least. And Ampadu's work on the goalie meant I really didn't get anywhere near it. He wasn't able to get anywhere near it, and Roden scored quite a simple header, to be honest. He just had to
it was
slant his header towards the goal and it go in, and it did. So there you go.
He also helped that they had Paqueta marking him like what?
I feel like Roden there's been a few Roden shots recently where I've been baffled by the marker for a few teams now.
Is it because of his long-term history for not scoring headers, do you think? Honestly, I'm being serious here.
It might be, yeah.
Like could they be looking at him and saying, we know they've got a lot of big bastards, but Joe Roden is a big bastard who we can worry about the least because he's got a head like a 50p.
It's not the case recently. We'll probably
no, it's not. It's not, and I would guess that teams will be taking him seriously more, which will cause more openings for our other big bastards to get headers on goal. So, you've got to imagine it's a headache for opponents to work out which one of these guys do we pick up first. Who do we put our biggest guy on? Do we put it on Anton Shak? I know he didn't play in this one, but he's still a big guy who's in this game. Do we put him on Sean Longstaff? No, he's taking the corner. Okay, that's one of them out of the way. Do we put them on Joe Roden? Do we put them on Pascal Struijk? And now they've brought in this Slovenian guy, Jakobiol. He's a big guy too. So, it's got... And then Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. So it's got to be a nightmare for them to defend the set pieces, and we're doing quite well with them. And it's good that we are making use of it. But once again, for this one, it was that West Ham... I mean, they've let in 3 times as many set-piece goals as any other club this season. 9 set-piece goals in 8 games. That's mad. Well, 9 games now, I think it is. But I'm not sure if that was before the goal we scored from set-piece, or maybe they're on 10 now. I don't know. But
either way, that's a lot for 9 games, 9 or 10 goals. And just one last point on the kind of relegation picture. It just feels crazy right now, and I don't want to go into those details on this because we might do a whole pod on this at some point. We've got an international break coming, and it's kind of content we might do during that the picture at the bottom, because it's just mental right now. I've got the table in front of me open. Brentford are in 11th. A lot of people thought they'd struggle, including quite a few people at this podcast. And they're above Newcastle, who are definitely not going to be in the mix, but they're down there. And then you've still got Everton, Burnley, Fulham, Nottingham Forest, West Ham, Wolves, and of course Leeds in a bottom 7 right now. It's bonkers, and obviously Wolves have not doing so great right now. Still haven't won. West Ham have won once, and that was to Forest, who are the other team in the relegation zone. I don't know what's going to happen. I worry for West Ham, though, as you said. I think their lack of runners in midfield, unless they can play a couple and find a new formula, is a problem. I think their lack of legs around the pitch and physicality is a problem as well. And Wolves, I think you lose that many games and you don't win a game, it just completely creates a snowball effect, and that can be quite dangerous. Although a couple of wins can turn you around quickly, it's dangerous. Forest are the only ones that I'm thinking they'll probably be fine down there. I don't know with the rest. I could still see Everton getting sucked in. They've been awful recently after a pretty good run not long after we beat them. So it's a real fun picture, and maybe in a few more games it'll become clearer, and maybe in a few more games, like I said, we will do a podcast on that. But we're going to move on now.
Sorry to interrupt, just a quick one. If you're enjoying the video, be sure to like and subscribe to help us keep the content coming. And if you want even more, you can support us over on patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. You'll get bonus podcasts, exclusive articles, and access to our Discord community, all while helping us make more of the content you love. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
So let's talk about specific players and performances in a bit more detail, as well as some questions from you guys, because that's important. Martin, let's break down the goal then, because it sparked some discussion online. I saw, especially from Ethan, he did a good little thread on it, about where the fault lies in his opinion. How avoidable was it? Who was the most culpable for it, in your opinion?
I think there's a lot in this whole spell who didn't do all that great, didn't cover themselves in glory. I don't think there was enough pressure put on the cross by James Justin. He was weird because he initially didn't move towards the cross, but then last minute he just decided to suddenly move over to it. But by then it was too late. Bowen had already got his foot set to cross it, and I just didn't understand that whole bit at all. And Ampadu just let Fernandes just sort of ghost in and didn't really pick him up. I know he was relatively close to him, but he still wasn't close enough to be able to get anything on that. Roden could have moved towards Fernandes as well when the ball came in, but I think he was also picking up somebody else, so I'm kind of not giving him as much blame on that one, because he was kind of marking, I forget who it was who was near him, but there was someone else who he was trying to pick up. So if I had to put it on someone, I'd put it on Ampadu, to be honest, because he's a club captain and he should be doing better than that in that situation. And this is the second time that I've picked on Ampadu for one of the goals recently. The which one was it?
Burnley.
Yeah, the shot which he didn't close down from the edge of the box.
Yeah.
So there's that one that he didn't close down. This one where he just let Fernandes go into him. I mean, I know, like I said earlier, Fernandes wouldn't be the guy who you look at and think, yeah, he's going to score a header. But it doesn't have to be a header. It could have been anything, any action.
Drop. Yeah,
exactly. The ball could just drop to him, and then he would have been free. So you at least need to be close to the guys who are entering the box. And I just think Ampadu switched off for a second. It happens. It happens to every footballer. So I still love him.
I think there's 3 moments now you can say. Actually, you can say that one, the Burnley one, and then the Bournemouth one. Him and Bogle got in a bit of a mix-up, didn't they? So
yes,
late in games, he's done that a few times now. And I love the bloke so much. And like normally his kind of nose for danger is really, really spot on, but maybe it's just tiring, like mentally tired, maybe.
And he has played every minute so far as well. So you've got to add, you've got to imagine he's quite tired. It definitely will be, because he's playing full games all the time. Not like I want it.
Usually,
yeah, exactly. Not like I want him to come off, because I don't want to see Gruev too much.
No, and I didn't like how he played when he came on, I'm not going to lie.
I didn't mind some of the things that he did, but like he was putting on some decent pressure. I think he was brought on to try to be one of the few who were pressing further forward. He was the only one joining Calvert-Lewin in the forward press, for example, so it was more like a 4-4-2 at times was the press, but largely I'm not a fan of Gruev. So yeah, I want to keep Ampadu on the pitch as much as we can, but yeah, I think this is something that we've got to put up with. We don't have players who will hold concentration for a full 90 minutes of football. Even the elite players in the league will have moments where they switch off here and there. It's just part of being human. Sometimes you will switch off. So yeah, if I had to put it on anyone, it would be Ampadu, but I don't really care. He's still amazing.
Yeah, and I still love him. And he's also in the team for a lot more than just how good he is as a player, let's put it that way. He's clearly one of the most important players in terms of his leadership, and that is probably important late in matches as well, as much as anything. We had a question from Tom Wilson. We didn't get loads of questions, I'm not going to lie, so this section might be a bit shorter than usual, but we had one from Tom Wilson, and he said, good friend of the pod, we only attempted 11 crosses, which is the third lowest runs this season, and bearing in mind West Ham, one of the worst teams at dealing with crosses, and we have Calvert-Lewin, it felt like we missed a trick. Especially when we scored from 2, a corner, and kind of across for the first as well. Yeah, kind of see where he's coming from. We attempted the most in a game for 5 years against Burnley, Martin, and this was kind of the other way. And when we talked about high balls having effectiveness, I guess crosses come into this as well. Like their centre backs are just not good in the air at dealing with stuff. So maybe we should have tried more. Does Tom have a point here?
Well, yeah, I do think, but it isn't something that we don't generally go for. We do generally put in a lot of crosses. I mean, just to get the last game before this against Burnley, we had a record for the amount of crosses that we've attempted in the league game. So, and obviously we didn't do very well with those crosses, but yeah, I think also that we were focusing more on central progression in this one, with the pronounced weaknesses with West Ham in the centre of the pitch, whereas I think in the wide areas they were stronger. I mean, they've got 2 pretty good fullbacks, you have to say, at least defensively. You got the Diouf on the left, who's got a lot of pace and power, and it's difficult to get past. So I can understand why we wouldn't try to focus on that side and try to whip balls in beyond him. And then on the other side, they've got Wan-Bissaka, who is known to be a pretty good defensive fullback at this level. Not great going forward. Don't like him for that part of his game, but for defensively, he's pretty strong. So I think maybe we just looked at this one as one that we could focus more on the centre of the pitch rather than going down the flanks, because maybe that route wouldn't have worked as well for us. Where some moments where we did manage to get in behind on the flanks, but largely we were looking more central, especially from turnovers. We were focusing on the middle of the pitch rather than the flanks. So I think it's just a way of keeping teams guessing, because largely we do attempt a fair number of crosses, and I don't think that'll change. I think we will continue to do that, but I can understand what he's on about, because it was quite a low amount of crosses in this one. But we did have pretty much a full half where we weren't doing too much tackling in this one, so I'd imagine most of those crosses came just in one half, potentially. So yeah, it was a problem, but it didn't affect us, luckily.
Correct. I'm not going to add anything. I think there are players in the team that are probably better crosses of the ball that we could probably get involved as well, and we could do it more then. As we said about Burnley at the later stages, Dan James's crossing was much better than other players that we had on the pitch in that match when he came on. I'm not even saying his crossing's that unbelievable, but it's clearly one of the better in the squad. So, but speaking of the player that played instead of him on the right, we had Brendan Aronson has to be one of his best performances in a Leeds shirt. And I'm not even on about just the goal. There was just a lot more going right for him than usual. It felt he was carrying through stuff. He nearly scored one of the best goals he would have ever scored in his career when it hit the crossbar. He looked busy, as he always does, but with a little bit more quality than usual. Yeah, he was much better here, wasn't he, Martin?
Can't argue. No, he was very good in this game. That particular carry that you mentioned there, it was his manipulation of the ball in
Messi.
In those tight spaces, it was very, very, very good. You can't say anything more, because it was, and that's the thing that I've always said about Brendan Aronson, that I've always liked those kind of things from him, and he has a good touch on him. He has pretty good press resistance. He hasn't got much strength behind him, so that's one thing which can be an issue. But he didn't let that affect him in this one. Maybe because West Ham also don't have much strength in those midfield areas. But yeah, he had a very good game, and definitely the best one that he's had so far this season. I do think that he was helped by how poor West Ham were, like we were in general in this one. But I don't want to hold that against him, because he was very good in this one. He was. Even for the goal, it wasn't easy to get to, because he had to react quick enough to get there, because it was a pretty crowded box, and you have to be the first one to get there. All you have to do is get a foot on it, of course, but just get in there. You have to be quick to get there, and he's got that quick burst of acceleration.
Can you tell our listeners what the post-shot XG of his shot was compared to the actual?
I can have a look. Let's see.
I can tell you now that it decreased the quality of the chance, which was very Brendan Aronson.
I don't care about that. It's not decreased that massively.
No, I know, but it just makes it. It's just funny. It's just him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but it's fine. He still scored, and I felt he did well throughout this game. Not just in possession, out of possession as well. He won a few balls which got us forward in transition, and yeah, definitely his best game of the season so far for me.
Yeah, definitely one of his, like I said, one of his best performances in the Leeds shirt, especially in the Premier League. I can't think of many at all better. Maybe a few Championship appearances here and there where he did light things up a bit. Yeah, I mean, like you say, there's always going to be things to like about his game. The body feints and the little drops of a shoulder, the tight turning circle and his agility in those tight spaces, really good. And his carrying ability is decent as well. It's just that last 10, 15% when you get up to the top end of the pitch, it goes a bit Ethan Ampadu, and his brain doesn't always work properly in terms of his decision making and when to pass, when to shoot, when to hold on to the ball. Just the weight of some of those things, his general technique and shooting, they're just not consistent. They're sometimes there, but they're often not. So he's a really frustrating player for me. He's still a player I don't particularly love in this squad, and I'd rather see someone else on the right, but Farker will feel vindicated for playing him, let's put it that way. And I do want to praise him. He was good here, like I said. it was also Jakobiel's first Premier League game of any kind because he's never come on as a sub. Played a whole 90 minutes, played the entire match. Started, Martin. How did you actually think he got on? Because I have mixed feelings personally.
I think off the ball he was pretty strong. He had nice defensive moments in him. There was one particular last ditch tackle which he putting it out for a corner in the second half, which was really nice. I wasn't the biggest fan of his in possession game. He gave the ball away a few times, and I think he struggled to get the ball out to the left side as easier as what Struijk would, because obviously Struijk is left footed, and also I just think that Struijk is better with the ball than he is anyway. But yeah, I've got to say that he would look a lot better than this if this wasn't his first start. I mean, we're deep into October, and for him to have his first start now is pretty bad that we haven't got him to have this start earlier than this. And I think he probably would have looked better had it not been for that. But
yeah,
it's still
rust.
Yeah, exactly. And he hasn't played with his team much, so he's not as familiar with where his teammates will go. There's only so much you can learn in training about a player's movements. You have to actually play with them to get used to them. So it will just take some time for us to see the best of Yaka. I think he will do better. He was a bit wobbly at times, but I still don't think he was awful. But he just had a few moments where he wasn't great.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was a foul in particular that he gave away where I think fans would have, it was so soft and stupid that fans, if it was Struijk, would have lost their heads completely at it. I do think that people are judging these individual moments fairly when it comes to the three centre-backs that we've got, who are all great. And I think there was a lot of confirmation bias and outcome bias as well here on display because we won the match and we almost kept a clean sheet. So people are quite very quick to, oh, well, this is why, and that sort of thing. It's just rubbish, really. So I don't think he was particularly great. I don't think he was awful. I think he was a bit mixed. But I could, like you said, understand why there might be some rust, and he's just not used to playing with this team. I still think he is the best centre-back at the club. I know that a lot of people think that it's Joe Rodon. We've seen 2 games of Jakobiel, one in the Cup against Sheffield Wednesday, who just a very weird game. And then this one, I feel like you will probably see quite a lot more fans saying it's the big Slovenian in time if he stays in the team, which I imagine he will, because that's what Farke is like. And the other one that got a lot more minutes than usual, I don't know how many minutes was his most for this game for Leeds, but James Justin obviously came on in quite a lot of good time because Goodmanson got injured in the first half. He played really well, I thought. I don't know about you. I thought he managed what is definitely West Ham's best player, most dangerous player, really well, other than maybe the cross that he didn't close down quite quick enough. But honestly, other than that, didn't really put a foot wrong. Some of his passing looked pretty decent as well. He just looked really solid. And he came on, and again, he's not had tons of games this season. He's got more minutes for Leicester City this season than he does for Leeds. And yeah, he looked pretty at home as a left back, even though he's obviously not a natural left footer, even though his left foot is very good. So I thought he did well, personally, Martin. And if Goodmanson is injured, it's a loss. But I'll be very pleased if Justin plays anything like this for the rest of the games that he has to play.
Yeah, I was happy with what I saw from him. I can see where I went for him. He seems to be quite a similar profile to Goodmanson. He's quite physical, pretty pacey, and he can carry the ball well. And those are the main things which I associate with Goodmanson. I think Goodmanson does do all these to a better degree than what Justin does, but I do think that he was very good in this. And like you say, he had to deal with West Ham's biggest threat in this one, and largely he did do well with dealing with that. And yeah, I was happy with what I saw from him. Looking forward to seeing more. Just hopefully Goodmanson isn't going to be out for too much longer. I'd be okay if he was a couple of games, but no more than that, really, please.
I wouldn't mind him being injured so that he has to miss the Sweden games and he gets a rest. But sorry to any of our Swedish Leeds fans, because we probably do have some listeners from there, because I know he's a good player for you guys, but I'd just like him to get a bit of more of an extended break. Let's put it that way. Did anyone actually struggle in this match, Martin, in your opinion, overall? Were most players all right?
I think most players were all right, to be honest. I can't think of anyone who struggled in this one. No, not in particular. Just looking over the stats, and nothing screams out at me as to looking dreadful. No, I think I'm happy with what I saw from most players in this one. I couldn't really pick someone out to say, yeah, they did badly in this one.
I've got one that just didn't think he was that involved. Apart from he got an assist for Joe Rodon. Sean Longstaff, I just didn't see him that much. Obviously, you know what you get with him in terms of just basically dual winning, running around, but I just didn't see him all that often. And I won't name who, but someone in our group chats did say they don't like a particular aspect of his game, which is that he goes to ground a lot. And I didn't notice that on the first watch, but on the second watch, there were a couple of moments where I'm just like, yeah, just stay on your feet. You don't need to do that. I think he's got that, like, it's almost that Geordie in him. It's that northern steel that he's got where he just wants to make a big tackle and get the crowd all, yes, go on. You don't need to do that all the time. You can stay on your feet. You can track your man. It's just, yeah. So I thought he was maybe one of the weaker players outfield, but like no one was poor. No one at all was poor. So yeah, it's just a minor thing, and I don't think it's something to pick up on for other people. That you'll notice it now. I've said it. Goes to ground a lot. I've started noticing it. So yeah, who was man of the match then? I'm going to let you go first because I think I know you're going to say it's probably the same as the Sky one. Who they picked out?
I'm actually going to give Brendan Aronson it, to be honest.
Fair.
Just because it was the best performance of the season so far. Joe was really good as well. Not going to say it wasn't. It's very tight. But I just want to give it to Aronson because I just felt that he did more in the individual moments in this one. He was pretty influential throughout spells of this, and it's very rare that you can say that of Aronson. So I just want to give him his credit where it's due. How about you?
I think I'd give it to Rodon for the 90 minutes. If you'd asked me on 60, I think I would have said one of two players, which I think would have been either Brendan Aronson or actually someone we've not mentioned at all who came back into the team for this game for the first time since the first game of the season. No, second game. He played against Arsenal, didn't he? But in terms of home games, Altanaka seems to be the winning formula, and I was very, very pleased with how he did coming back in. And that isn't to say that I would like him to start over Anton Stach, but I think there's probably a space for them both, to be honest. There's probably a space for no Ampadu at times. I'm not saying I want that, but like there's options there with those four players in those three positions, let's put it that way. And then there can be more of a horses for courses approach. And yeah, I just liked he's just easy on the eye, isn't he? And I mean in every kind of sense. Like there's so many nice little flicks or passes that his kind of actually Strauch has this as well. Weight of pass, like understanding of shape of ball needed to someone's feet is so good in our team. There aren't many players that have that. I've forgotten the phrase the tacticos used to describe it. I think it begins with an A, but I can't remember. But yeah, it's just
aesthetics. Is that what we're looking for?
No, it's like it's the way they actually use like punch the ball, the way they actually use the ball. Like the handling of it, like the weight of pass, it's all around that sort of thing. And yeah, he has it in abundance. And like, I just felt so at home watching him, thinking, yeah, just the way you just shift it out your feet and then out to the flank, or pop it off to a midfielder quickly and then make a little run. Like it's just really, really nice, and I loved watching him. So shout out to him. But I do think it was Joe Rodon, whose goal scoring form is honestly, he's gone nuts. Now he had scored one goal this time last year. He had one goal in his career, one for club and country, and that was one goal it was Stade de Reims in France that he had. He hadn't scored for Spurs, he hadn't scored for Wales, he hadn't scored for Swansea. Then he ended up Stade de Reims, Stade Rennais, that's what I meant to say. But yeah, he's now got 6 career goals, and 5 of them have come in the last 10 months. Which doesn't sound incredible, but for a centre-back, that's pretty good. That's like 5 a season if you did it over a full season, 10-month season, pretty much, isn't it? So that's like 5 a season. And this season alone, because he only got one last season, I guess if we include in the summer with Wales, he scored a goal in June, which means he's now got, if my math is correct, 4 goals in 13 games for club and country, which is
pretty mad.
Good.
Pretty mad for a centre-back.
1 in 3 for a centre-back at the moment. It's probably not going to maintain. No. I can't imagine he continues at a 1 in 3 ratio for the rest of the season, but really, really, really good stuff. And it was a few days after his birthday. Him and Aronson had just had their birthdays in the week. They have the same birthday, and they both scored, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
So happy birthday to both of them. But yeah, happy that Joe Rodon at the age of 27, 28 has decided, I know how to score goals now. And like you said, Martin, it's almost like he has to be the player that people think about more, the opposition. I think Strauch's still probably the best goal-scoring centre-back at the club, but it's not by much. And now we've got Rodon. Like, you've got two threats there if they're playing. Jakobiel's another threat if he's playing, or if it's two, at least three of those are playing. Calvert-Lewin, Stack. These are big guys that they're going to have to think about, and quite a few of them are able to score goals. Calvert-Lewin's a great goal scorer in terms of his heading. We know that in his career. It's his feet that are the problem. It's not his head. Very, very happy for Joe. If those stats are slightly incorrect, I apologise. I was trying to do some very quick maths whilst we were talking. But yeah, happy for him. So the last one I'll ask you, which is to preview the preview that we've got coming up against Brighton, Martin, is Will Martin, this is from Sicross, our lovely friend, wonderful, the king of the Discord, essentially. He said, will Martin be okay when Georgie scores against us this weekend? What's you say to that?
Yes, I'll be very happy.
Even if it's 1-0?
No, I'm not going to say. I hope that isn't the case. If it does come down to and it's the only thing separating us is the Georgie goal, then I won't be very happy. But if Georgie can score, but we still win
5-1.
Yeah, there we go. That's ideal. Yeah, Leeds win 5-1. Georgie and Milner score. There we go.
Milner assist. He got an assist at the weekend, which meant the player that he assisted hadn't been born yet. It's the first time that had ever happened. Not only had he not been born, but I think he was born about 4 years after Milner was first playing in his career. So absolutely mental. Yeah.
Wow.
So that'd be pretty cool. I, for one, hope he doesn't score because I don't want to see your reaction if he does celebrate. If he does a big respect to I love Leeds.
He won't.
Then great. But if he celebrates, I don't know what you might break down and I might have to do a therapy session with you.
I have faith. I have faith in Georgia. He still has sentiment for us, and it's mutual. If he does score, he won't celebrate. I'm 100% sure of that.
Okay, well, I hope you're right. I hope you beat those bloody Seagulls. We've never seen them on the South Coast. But we will be previewing that later this week. That'll probably be Wednesday. Probably be in your podcast player either Wednesday night or early on Thursday before the game, which is on Sunday, isn't it? And like I said, we've got another international rating that's not actually that far away already now. So if you want to hear our content, we will have some extra stuff coming out around that time. Where can they find that, Martin?
Patreon.com/ASAW Patreon.
Not delivered quite as well as Hosty probably did earlier in this podcast, but thank you very much nonetheless. That's all we have time for tonight. We'll be back, as we say, with a preview of Brighton. And all that's left me to say is thank you very much as ever to Martin.
Thank you as well, Adam.
And to you, dear listeners, hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Ride the high of another win. 3 wins. Wow. We're absolutely flying. See you soon. Bye.